The Browns, they're putrid. They're the worst team in the NFL.
The season, the 2024 season is over.
Lamar Jackson can't win the playoffs. He'll win a third MVP, though, so that's great.
Drew Sample is the most important piece of the Bengals offense next year.
Go Joe Burrow. He deserves to be MVP. I wish he was the Browns quarterback. Kind of mean that.
If you're looking for the most reactionary, silly, and unserious show on the internet, then you're home. Live from Hamilton, Ohio, it's Off the Bench by Chatterbox Sports on 1410 ESPN Radio.
Welcome in Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Dustin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tissett with you here. It's a Wednesday, but it's our Friday, and we all know how serious we take our Friday shows around here. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm good. I'm ready to go. I told you guys I showed up to work this morning. It's a ghost town. I'm the only one here. But I did not want Everett and the others to be disappointed if I would have taken the day off like everybody else. So I'm here for them. I'm a man of the people. I would hate to kick off their holiday week, with bad vibes. That'd be missing Kinner for a couple days. So
that'd be terrible. No, but it's always good when a Wednesday is a Friday. So good vibes all around in here. I think.
Yeah, great vibes.
Casey went to town this morning on the thumbnail.
Did you see the thumbnail, Kinner?
One of our best, I think.
No, I did not. Let me check it out. Remember, I try not to check the chat for my mental health.
Kinner stays away from YouTube.
I haven't checked the old tube in a while. Oh, that is nice. That's how friendly and nice we all look.
Yeah. No, it's
well done,
good
Casey.
stuff.
Yeah,
well
we're
done.
Just all enjoying a Thanksgiving meal together.
That's right. We should have had a Friendsgiving episode where we
should have
had way too much food and see who can eat the most.
Yeah, we could do that next year. Next Thanksgiving.
Next Thanksgiving.
So, I don't know if you guys have rules about having liquids around technology, but my engineer is very strict about us not having any drinks around the board here in the studio. And I broke that rule, and now there is coffee everywhere. I pulled a reed. Yeah, it is. It is everywhere. It is on my lap. Oh my goodness. This is this keyboard. I think I'm really curious how absorbent this keyboard is. I'd say, by the way, it's just puddling between the keys that it's pretty absorbent. Yeah, 'tis the season.
Do you want to clean it real quick, or
no?
Okay.
No.
I'm committed at this point. It's my. It is what it is. But
Kenner,
we will kick off the show the way we are supposed to by sending it to our guy Elliot for the last version of this. We now send it to our guy Elliot. No. Really, I got it this time.
Okay.
It's supposed to kick off in December, so that's what we're waiting on. But
I like that.
Elliot's headlines, ladies and gentlemen.
Elliot loves three things: Joey Votto, David Bell, and leading off the bench with top headlines.
That's right, magical voice. The last time I'll hear that.
Is it the same voice, Skinner, or is it a new voice?
No, same voice, just different.
Okay, so we still have our friend here.
Okay, so it's still our magical voice. Yeah. College basketball, a lot of great basketball yesterday. Auburn, they take down North Carolina in a top 12 matchup to reach the Maui Invitational. They win 85-72. Kansas, they stayed perfect yesterday, holding off Duke 75-72. Hunter Dickinson was ejected in that win, and Cooper Flagg dropped 13 points. So
Cooper Flagg, 7 years younger than Hunter Dickinson.
Really? How about that, man? That's crazy. My Kansas future is still intact.
They're a good basketball team. They're a really good basketball team. One of my favorite players in the whole country, Rylan Griffin. He was on Alabama for the last 2 years, and now he's on Kansas. One of the prettier shots in the entire country.
Okay, there we go. Dayton, they blew another lead. Iowa State beat them 89-84 yesterday. Mark Sears and Alabama.
Roll Tide.
They roll past Houston 85-80. Oregon, they stayed perfect yesterday. They beat 20th-ranked Texas A&M 80-70. UConn, they lost for a second straight time. Colorado with the win this time, 73-72. And you'll never guess who Dan Hurley placed the blame on. You'll never guess it. He did say the defense has been atrocious, but the referee's always getting shots, stray shots there from the coach of UConn. 21st-ranked Creighton. They lose to San Diego State yesterday, 71-53. Absolute dominant performance from San Diego State. Moving on to college football, this is one that we just threw in there. Kent State finishes their season 0-12. 0-12 after a 43-7 loss to Buffalo. They have won one time in 2 years. No FBS wins. One win in 2 seasons.
Yeah, unbelievable. Their head coach in off-season training had a special sweatshirt made courtesy of Under Armour, their equipment sponsor. It said across the front, 1-11 in big numbers, because that was their record last year. And he said he didn't want the team to forget that because they're going to improve on that record this year. It's really hard to go backwards from 1-11. They did.
They went backwards.
They were outscored 529 to 167 this year.
Oh, boy.
They scored 13.8 points per game while allowing over 44 per game and a negative 11 turnover differential. They were so bad this year that when they went 0-11 last week, there was gambling rumors about their head coach betting against the team, but it seems like they're just bad.
Yikes. I mean, that's truly one of the biggest disasters in all of sports, so good for them. Hopefully Kent State can figure it out next year. The 0-12 sweatshirt, that's going to sell off the charts. I'll buy one. I'll tell you what, I'll buy one right now.
Would you buy a super marked down 1-11 sweatshirt?
Yes.
Like 60% off right
Yeah, I
now
would.
because they
Yeah,
went
I
0-12.
would. They could actually improve next year. They could be striving for 1-11.
Yeah.
It would be different.
No, speaking of marked down, I went to the Rally House by my house. the
Really?
other day. Full rack of Jonathan India Cincy shirts and jerseys. Red Sparrow.
Oh, no.
We got the all the jerseys all like 60-70% off.
Oh,
Sad. It was sad.
that's our guy. Sweet Jonathan. Blake Snell. For those of you who don't watch baseball or don't care for off-season moves, Blake Snell signed a 5-year, $182 million deal with who? The Dodgers.
And get this. Some of that money's deferred.
No, they did it again?
They did it again.
So you're telling me that they're just going to keep doing this stuff until somebody puts an end to it?
I want Juan Soto on the Dodgers now. I'm all in.
I wanted them to get everybody.
Just tank
Like,
it.
I want to see how many superstar players they can add. I want this payroll to be higher than any payroll in any sport ever. That's what I want this to be, because it's going to take.
Teams? Oh no, I'm curious. Like, so when you say rollovers, they did exactly what they did with Shohei, right?
I don't know if to that extent, but it was just reported that some of this contract is deferred payments as well.
Interesting. I wonder, like, could the Reds do that? Are the Reds capable of doing that?
I'm sure they're all capable of it. I just don't know if anybody's going to do it as confidently and as much as the Dodgers have done it.
If I'm Bob, I do it. Just say, hey, I'm not. I'm a little on the older side. It'll be Phil's problem.
Have your kids deal with it.
I'm just saying.
Where are they going to go?
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 Get the money. Yeah. So, but interesting.
If he sticks Phil with like $1 billion in deferred contracts, and then on his deathbed says, "Where are you going to go?"
It's
That would be perfect.
what it is. I'm sure we'll talk about that later,
Yeah.
but it's truly a disaster. NBA news, not a ton yesterday. The Suns, they take down the Lakers 127-100. It was the first ever Lakers NBA Cup loss.
Wow.
So I'm sure LeBron and the boys were really sad after that one. We had the Rockets taking down the Timberwolves in overtime. Sengun triple-double. Alfred Sengun, is that his name?
Alperen Sengun.
Okay, so I got that completely wrong. That's why you don't say names on the show. The Bucks 106-103, they beat the Heat. Lillard had 37 points, 12 assists. Another win without Giannis for Milwaukee.
The New York Knicks last night accomplished a feat that has never been seen before in NBA history.
Really?
It's a classic NBA stat, but still kind of cool once you get through it. They're the first starting lineup in the history of the league to score 115 points on higher than 60% from three, have 2 players score 30 points on at least 65% from the field, a player with 15 assists, and a player with 15 rebounds. No other starting lineup has ever done all 5 of those.
Really?
Yeah.
How about that? Good for the Knicks. But those are your headlines.
Yeah, and we'll get into I want to talk about the Dodgers coming up here just around the corner. We planned on talking about the possibility of Soto going to the Dodgers. And I saw something earlier this morning that said, well, maybe this nixes the chances of them potentially being able to get Soto. And I'm like, says who? You think you give, a $1 billion contract to a player a year ago that would keep you from being able to sign anybody ever again moving forward. But yet here they are. So we'll get to that coming up here in a moment. You mentioned Dan Hurley a little bit ago. Those antics getting a little old. They're getting a little old. I mean, back-to-back days where he's throwing literal physical temper tantrums, shoving his coaches, having to be restrained. Like, get a grip, dude. Like, I'm a huge Hurley fan. I love it. But, like, it comes a point, and by the way, I don't even mind it when it's every once in a while where you blow up. But it seems like it's every single game now. I'm like, we get it. I saw someone last night that say, we get it, Hurley. You're a tough guy. We got it. You've convinced us. Enough now. It is getting a little bit much, and it's getting kind of annoying, to be honest with you.
No, I don't disagree. I mean, I feel like the last 2 years he's dialed it back, at least in the tournament, in order for them to make these runs. I think a big thing people held against UConn in years past is that they have that hot head coach that could flip a close game like he did in the first Maui Invitational game in the tournament, and he hasn't done that down the stretch. It does seem like it's becoming a problem early this year. He's going to have to dial it back if they want to make another run, but I'm worried about this UConn team kind of bigger picture than just Dan Hurley. Before Donovan Clingan arrived at UConn in 2022, the Dan Hurley teams at UConn ranked 129th, 59th, 29th, and 43rd in adjusted defense. With Clingan on the team, they ranked 7th and 4th. So far this year, they're ranked 61st. Everyone's giving Hurley this credit that he's going to turn this team around defensively. It's early in the season. They're going to be just fine like the last 2 years. This seems a lot closer to the teams before Donovan Clingan got there, when they weren't elite defensively. And that really scares me because I don't know that they necessarily have the elite guard play like Tristan Newton as well over the last couple of years. So you're losing two key pieces that any championship team needs in college basketball. So I know that's just 2 losses. I know it's very early in the season. It's still the Invitationals. UConn's going to be fine. They're going to figure it out. They're going to be there at the end. But when we're talking about national championship contenders and a potential three-peat, I have a lot of concerns about UConn, and it's a little bit deeper than just Dan Hurley.
Yeah, I saw a couple UConn fans complaining somehow they're on my time. You've just won back-to-back national championships. Why don't you calm down a little bit with the complaints? I will say this though, why would you volunteer to be a college basketball official? Because it's just like every coach does this. We do it at UC. Xavier certainly does. There's every school in the world that complains about officiating, and it's just those guys just take a beating. They can't do anything right. I'm not saying they do a good job. I'm just saying, why would you even do it? Why would you even put yourself in that position? Because it's just at this point, they're just villains. The referees have become villains in college basketball. There's the high knees guy. Everybody loves the high knees guy. Dan Hurley calls these guys out by name. I think he said yesterday's call was worse than Monday's call. He's like, oh, it's just significantly worse.
He said he didn't know one of the 3 refs was a college basketball ref, but he did know the other 2 refed college basketball, and it made sense that the game went the way it did with them calling it.
Yeah, I would never be a referee, especially in today's climate.
Thankless job.
Yeah, and we always blame officiating for everything, right? Like, I know we got into that debate about the officials a couple weeks ago and after that Bengals Ravens game or whatever it was, but like I always say this too, we always think officiating's bad. I always say, like, officiating needs to be fixed. It's bad today. And I always say, when was the golden age of officiating? Like, we always talk about how, like,
when they didn't have cameras.
Yeah, I was going to say, like, I don't think officiating is any better or worse than what it used to be. I think, to be fair, there are more resources to get it right more often than what they do right now. I guess you could make that argument. Jake, I think one of the shows I was off, I know you guys were talking about it, where they do, especially in the NFL, they have the option. They literally have somebody that is evaluating every play that they literally could just message down to the field, hey, you got that wrong, reverse it. It could be something as simple as that. They don't. But I always get a kick out of when people like phrase that, hey, officiating's really bad today. The NFL needs to do something about it. Basketball needs to do something about it. I don't think officiating is any better or worse today than what it has been. I don't know how much better you could make it. It just is what it is. We move the goalposts all the time. That's why Bengals fans got mad at me a few weeks ago when I said, look, officiating, it's just like, it's all in how the scope and how you view it. We had the rules of you don't call that there when it was a call against your team, but then for your team, it wasn't called. You want it to be called there. Like, there's no rhyme or reason for it. Everyone is just very biased with how they want officiating to be. And, of course, I always say this. There's always bad calls in close games. It's because those calls are held under a microscope because the feel and the vibe of the game is so much higher because, hey, the game's on the line more than a bad call that's made in the first half or something along those lines. But, yeah, I when people say that, I don't think there's an age of the golden era of officiating to compare it to.
No, I think it's very clear when the golden age of officiating was, and it's when you couldn't see every call on Twitter immediately after it was missed. I mean, you don't know refs are bad until you have screenshots and slow motion video of every single missed call, of every single pivotal play of the entire year of every game. they're at a disadvantage now. The only way we can improve officiating to a point where they're not criticized every time is to go fully automatic, which then removes the chance of any kind of missed call, which I think is a positive in sports. I think the human element with some missed calls, I'm not talking about balls and strikes. I think the automated balls and strikes is a great thing, but the human element in terms of pass interference and roughing the passer and holding calls and judgment calls along those lines, and whether a penalty affects the play or not, AI or a machine wouldn't have the ability to do that. I do think having people really does benefit the game as a whole, calling these things, and I don't think you can perfect it without going fully automatic, which I am against. But yeah, I mean, it is brutal, and it does seem like it's pretty bad now, worse than it's ever been. But I do think that's just because we see the calls.
Yeah, the refereeing thing, there's really no way to fix it as long as there are human beings out there refereeing the games. So my thing is, like, and we're all going to complain. I'm still going to complain about refs. I'll never stop complaining about refs.
But I want to be able to complain about the refs.
That's fair. But the thing is, there is a way to fix it, just no one's ever going to actually do that. So yeah. There's no point of sitting here talking about it.
Have you guys ever had to, like, ref, like, anything, like even like a little league game, or like an umpire a little league game, or a flag football game or anything?
Yeah, I reffed 3rd through 7th grade youth basketball all through.
Really?
How horrible was that?
I adored it. It was my favorite job I've ever had until this one, because I would just I'd pick my favorite players, and I'd call fouls if they missed shots, and then like if the coaches got mad at me, I'd throw them out of the game. And I loved giving technicals out to like 3rd graders for talking back about bad calls. It was my favorite job in the world. It was my favorite. I loved it. I might get back into reffing again in the off season.
Yeah, I'm out on. I was never gonna put myself in a position to be yelled at by an angry mob.
Oh, 3rd grade parents getting mad
because I would have thrown them all out.
Mob or mom? Did you say mob or mom?
Mob. Well, with
both,
a B.
Angry mom. An angry mom is scary too. But yes, I see your point.
I had no interest in that. If I was a referee, or an umpire, I would have literally tossed everybody out. Say one bad thing. Say one bad thing. I dare you. I would antagonize.
No, you got to have a quick trigger.
Oh, I would 100%. I would be a bad umpire referee. I would
figure out.
I would make whatever call gets us home earlier.
Brother. When they put me on a Sunday game, I was out of there by kickoff every single time.
It's going to be a real quick one.
It was a physical game.
I get verbally abused doing this job. I can't imagine dealing with it as an official. Like, I mean, here I could just block it out, but as officials, they're yelling at you the entire time. Like, imagine doing this show in front of a taped audience.
My mom was the one that was verbally abusing officials through youth sports when I was playing them.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
Nice.
Oh, yeah. Violent fan.
How about that?
It was incredible.
No, like, so I had to officiate a flag football game one time. I worked for the Parks Department, like, when I was in college, and they called and said, hey, it's the flag football championships. It was like, 4th, 5th grade. I don't even know what. It was, young. And I'm like, I don't want to do this. I hate doing this stuff, but for the kids, right? Well, I made a huge mistake. I made a huge mistake, okay? Huge mistake. It's a championship game, right? The final play of the game, I thought I saw they pull the flag, so I blew the play dead. They did not pull the flag. They just pulled on the yellow jersey. It was the Steelers. They were the Steelers, by the way. It was Steelers and Chiefs in the flag football Super Bowl. And yeah, it's still talked about to this day. It was one of the worst calls in the history of the Super Bowl, and I'm responsible for it. Yeah, the yellow jerseys, I saw them pull it. The flags were yellow, so when I saw them pulling the jersey, I thought it was the flag. It wasn't. I blew the play dead, and I cost the Steelers a Super Bowl. So there you go.
Were you the Ron Swanson of that Parks Department?
God, that's such a good show. We've talked about that. Show. Like I'm always like pro Office, The Office, but I watch Parks and Rec, and I truly feel like, man, this is as good, if not better, than The Office. But then I watch one episode of The Office, I'm like, nah, nothing beats The Office. But Parks and Rec is so good. Ron Swanson's the best. I love Ron Swanson.
I don't think Parks and Rec is quite as rewatchable as The Office.
I agree,
but it's very, very good.
All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410, Wing AM in Dayton. We'll step away for a few moments. The Dodgers, the rich get richer, and they may not be done. Soto still, of course, we're waiting to figure out which team he's going to pick. The Dodgers are very high up on that list, and if he does pick the Dodgers, I'm curious to see people's reactions, and will they hold him to the same level of accountability that they tried to with Kevin Durant back in the day? We'll talk about that when we come back. All right, and we are back off the bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. It's a Wednesday, but it is our Friday. We'll be off the next couple of days, and we're going to be enjoying our Thanksgiving break, and I hope everybody at home does as well. I know I'm not very liked by amongst all the people, but I really do.
They love
you
you.
guys have a good Thanksgiving Day break. I really do. I know I need a good break. I know everyone does. So looking forward to that, and then getting back next week, talking college football. Hopefully the Bengals get a win over the Steelers. At this point, my team's not competing with your team, so I don't even care. At this point, I'm all for the Bengals starting to make a run. So we have something to talk about because I really don't want to do draft talk so early in December. That's kind of sad at this point. So there you go. But we talked yesterday. We knew we were going to talk about the Dodgers a little bit today when it comes to the possibility of Soto becoming a Dodger. But then Blake Snell, all of a sudden, they make a huge deal with him last night or, whatever it was to close out the day. Not surprised, right? Not surprised that the Dodgers do this. Now, I keep seeing I saw Nick Kirby tweet this out yesterday as well, that he actually hopes the Dodgers do get Soto because this might be the tipping point of what will piss the league off enough of the fans and enough of the owners around baseball to say enough is enough. I don't know what that would necessarily fix. I don't know what the solution would be. But when you see Nick Kirby's tweet, I definitely get what he's saying. Do you think that would be enough, though? If Soto goes to the Dodgers, would that be enough to change to push the right people to initiate some kind of changes? And what changes would those be?
No, it won't be enough. And we can sit here and say it will be enough, but it won't be enough. MLB, Major League Baseball, the owners, Rob Manfred, they're aware of the problem. They've been aware of this problem for many years. It's why we make fun of the Yankees. It's why we hate the Dodgers. It's why we hate the Yankees. Teams have been doing this for quite some time. The rich, there are the rich teams, there are the poor teams, and then there's 50 feet of poop. We all know the quote from Moneyball, and it's a true quote, and it's been the truth for well over 25 years now. Baseball has been this kind of sport, and until somebody makes significant changes, then that somebody being probably the commissioner of the sport, Rob Manfred, nothing's going to happen. They can sign Juan Soto. They can sign Corbin Burns. They can go out and sign Anthony Santander. They can literally bring the most stacked roster in the history the world's ever seen. Nothing would change. That's how stuck in the past baseball is, and unfortunately, there's really nothing we can do. Now, Kirby did make a point yesterday, which I kind of agreed with. This doesn't really affect the Reds. It affects the Reds in a large scheme of things because, we could never compete for the Dodgers for elite talent, but we knew that going in. It's going to affect everybody in that division. Like if you are a Rockies fan, if you're a Diamondbacks fan, and you got to play the Dodgers 25 times a year, whatever it is, 18 times a year. If you have to do that, that's when it matters. But for us, we play them twice a season, 7 games max. Maybe we'll see him in the NLCS one day. That's what the Reds have to deal with. So nothing's going to change here. Nothing. It should change. It's a disgrace that they're able to do this, and the fact that they're able to do this deferred money thing now, crazy to me. It's absolutely insane that Nick Senzel made more than Shohei Ohtani last season. Absolutely insanity. And it's a shame for guys like us who are diehard Reds fans, and we watch the Reds week in, week out, knowing that what's our max payroll going to be? Our max payroll is going to be less than what Blake Snell makes for the Dodgers. That's just what it is. They have 400 other players. Each one makes more than the next. And then the Cincinnati Reds are just begging for the likes of who? Jamier Candelario? Tyler O'Neill? We're begging for them. And they get whoever the hell they want. So nothing's going to change. We can sit here and act like it's going to change. It hasn't changed in 200 years. It's not going to change now.
Yeah, it's a shame. I don't think it'd be enough to change anything. I don't think the Players Association would ever go for salary cap or salary floor. I think that's the only thing that would really shake up baseball to a degree where it can even a playing field in terms of going to get that top-tier talent. But like Elliott and Kirby said, it doesn't really affect the Reds. It's a shame because it just furthers the gap in terms of whether or not we think we can win a World Series. But right now, as Red fans, we want to win one playoff series. So we get over that hump, and then we can start worrying about the Dodgers. But as of right now, yeah, it stinks because it just continues to put up the I don't know, appearance that no matter what happens every single year, the best players in free agency are going to end up in really 2 or 3 cities, which is a shame because that's not fun. for anyone. It's fun for the NFL and the NBA when guys hit free agency and you're talking about, oh, where could they go? What franchise could they turn around? It's not the case in baseball. Juan Soto could absolutely turn around a lot of franchises. He could be the face of many, many franchises, and he's going to sign with the Yankees, the Mets, or the Dodgers because they're going to give him the most money, and he's going to be probably the best player on the team with 4 or 5 other MVP candidates. It's a consolidation of stars at this point that's going to water down baseball to a degree where we already talk about it in the regular season and in the playoffs. Baseball is the sport where fans are most focused on just their team with the least look around the rest of the league. And as these stars continue to consolidate in these 2 or 3 teams, it's going to further enforce that. Why am I watching the Pirate, or I guess that's in our division, but why am I watching the Diamondbacks or the Rockies play? I'm just going to watch those teams with all the stars and my own team. And that's it. You're not watching 20 teams in baseball. It's a shame, and it's not good for the sport. It's not good for the growth of the sport, but it's where we're at, and until it goes off the deep end, I don't think there's any way it can be saved. Even that, I don't know that it would save it.
It's just frustrating to know what happens into the story. Like the best part of sports is everything's unwritten, right? It's the best drama in the world. That's why I love it. It's entertainment. It's not really entertaining to sit there and get the notification that the Dodgers just get every superstar into the world. That's to me where there's such a drop off between a league like the NFL and Major League Baseball. I mean, Major League Baseball has done a good job at trying to get the casual fan back. They shortened the game. They've made the actual in-game experience much better all around the league. But the fundamental issue, and this is an issue just pretty much with anybody who seriously watches baseball at a consistent basis, is that the discrepancy between the high-paying elite teams and the bottom of the league salary-wise is such a large gap that it can never really be fixed anyway. We can sit here and put a salary floor, and I do think that's probably the better of the two options. But a salary just because I think that's more likely. A salary floor would make the Reds spend, but then it also just makes the Dodgers spend more. So then the Dodgers' $1 billion payroll goes to $2 billion, while the Reds' $100 million roster goes to $200 million. So it's what do you really fix there? The only way you can rationally fix it is with a salary cap. They've made it very clear salary cap's not going to happen. Under any circumstance, this wouldn't happen. I would see Rob Manfred deny a trade or deny a signing before he would instill a salary cap, because the owners have made it clear they don't care, they don't want it, they don't need it. So it's disappointing for the sport of baseball for sure.
When we say the owners don't want, obviously the Players Association would step into. They'd have a problem with that as well, because it would put a cap on, which is so weird because the Players Association is acting upon a small fraction of the total amount of players in the league. And what I mean by that is only a small fraction of players are getting paid what some of these individuals are getting paid. So when you say you're the Players Association, we're looking out for what's best for the players. You're not. You're looking out for what's best for, a tiny percentage of the full roster of players in Major League Baseball. From an ownership standpoint, this is why, I don't I just wish owners, if they truly were competitive and cared about baseball, if I'm Bob Castellini, I'm pissed, and I'm not just going to go with the flow of everyone else just saying, no salary cap, no salary cap, no salary cap. When it's the same owners spending the same total amount of money every single year, and you have the Castellinis and all the other rich owners hiding behind the small market excuse, why they haven't been driven to the point to where they've been outspoken about this is just beyond me. It just shows that they're not competitive, that they're not trying to do everything they can to gain an advantage or to give themselves a little bit more of an advantage to be more competitive on a consistent basis. Not, well, this is our one time this decade where we get to go all in, and if it doesn't work, we rebuild and we'll try again next decade. The Reds are competitive once a decade, and if you don't capitalize on it, wait till the next decade. That's just unfortunately how it goes. The Dodgers, they win a World Series, and they make moves right when free agency starts as if they lost last season and are trying to better their roster. It drives me nuts. I don't get why when you talk about the fact that baseball would never go for it, the owners never would. It just drives me nuts that there is such a large chunk of owners that are, knowing that they can't spend that money, are okay with the other owners outspending them by $1 bajillion. It drives me crazy that there's no competitive backbone in any of these owners' bodies to try to initiate some kind of change. Like I said, you guys are right. It doesn't really impact the Reds initially. But like, what if the Reds do, and we say that now, but what if the Reds do get to the National League Championship Series and it is the Dodgers, and it's like, we can't compete with that. We have a once-in-a-generation talent in Nelly De La Cruz. We have the best manager in baseball. We have a Cy Young caliber pitcher in Hunter Green, and maybe one of the better rotations in baseball, and still can't compete with that. That's a problem for baseball when you have a market that has probably one of the best rosters they'll ever have and still can't compete with some of the best teams in baseball at the biggest stage. I think that's a problem, and we all know that.
Yeah, it's disappointing. It's disappointing. We'll see who else they add. I mean, if that's one thing the sport has going for it, let's see how many superstars they can get before something gets done. Nothing will get done, but we can sit here and watch it unfold.
Blake Snell going to the Dodgers, good for him. Not a surprise there. But if Juan Soto does end up choosing the Dodgers, what will your guys' reaction be from a Soto standpoint? Because I thought about this comparison yesterday when we were talking. Years and years ago, Kevin Durant on the Oklahoma City Thunder goes up against the Warriors. They had a 3-1 lead. They end up they end up having a lead in that series, end up losing that series. And you would think that competitive bone in Kevin Durant's body is, okay, we got to go get more help and let's take it to him next year. No, he leaves in free agency, joins the team that knocked him out of the playoffs, a team that had already won a championship, and then try to ride their coattails as the guy that led them there, right? Now, you have a very similar possibility happening here with Soto, who's on the Yankees, who loses to the Dodgers in the World Series and could potentially go to the Dodgers and ride their coattails. And I'm curious if it will be met with the same kind of pushback that Kevin Durant got. Baseball is always viewed differently than other sports. We've talked about the fact that, Barry Bonds never won a World Series. If he doesn't have the cheating scandal, we're talking about him as the best player of all time, even without a championship. Championships don't build the resume of superstars in baseball like they do other sports. Is that what the difference is? Is there a difference? How would you feel if Soto joins the Dodgers, one of the teams that is most likely going to be able to sign him anytime now?
I feel like he won't be viewed like Kevin Durant in the terms of the jumping to go for the team that beat you, unless it's publicly reported that he's getting the same offers from other teams. The other thing I think that makes this different is Kevin Durant. The thing that made that so different, so hated, was that he was going from the Oklahoma City Thunder, which is a small market team that he built up, was drafted by, went from Seattle to Oklahoma City with the franchise, built them up to a point where they were a franchise or a playoff title contender, blew a big lead in the playoffs, and then went to the team that came back. Juan Soto's only going to juggernauts. Like, it's not like the Reds are in the mix or the Rockies are in the mix. He's only going to the Warriors of the league. That's why I don't think it's necessarily the same thing. Is that'd be like if Kevin Durant's free agency came down to the Warriors or the Celtics or the Lakers, and we're mad because he picked the Warriors. It's like they're all bad. It's just the lesser of a few evils.
Yeah.
If Juan Soto had a real shot at going to a small team, turning that franchise around, building them up, staying in Washington, I give him a lot more flack for turning down that $500 million offer in Washington than whatever he's going to do this free agency. Like, I don't think it's that big of a deal if you're picking between the Yankees, the Mets, and the Dodgers to pick the Dodgers.
I'm not going to be surprised anymore that athletes pick the highest dollar sign rather than pick the greatest storyline for their career. It's just how the world has gone for many years now. So I'm not going to sit here and blame him for joining the Dodgers. We just know that's what's going to happen. We know whoever offers him the most money, that's where you go. You'll be hard pressed to find another LeBron James coming back to Cleveland type story in sports. I would argue to say it will never happen again, but maybe someday in one sport it happens. Maybe, but I highly doubt it would ever happen in baseball. Maybe in the NFL.
Well, yeah, and look, we move the goal, and look, in the NBA it's different too because the goalposts get moved. That gets moved so much in the NBA. We tell players you're only great if you win championships. LeBron gives Cleveland the first 7 years of his career, 7 years to make championship moves, and they didn't do it. They didn't make moves to go help LeBron James. There was the talk of getting Amari Stoudemire, who was a superstar at that time, and Stoudemire ends up going to the Knicks, and they get LeBron Antoine Jameson. LeBron and the Cavs, he took bad rosters to the finals, and they never improved those rosters. You go get an 85-year-old Shaquille O'Neal, you go get a 95-year-old Ben Wallace. You never gave him any of those pieces. But LeBron knows that, hey, he's a talent that is going to be held to that Michael Jordan standard, but will never get there unless he wins championships. The Cavs weren't giving him those opportunities outside of the fact of him leading bad rosters there. He gave him 7 years, and he said enough's enough. He goes to Miami. Everyone says, by the way, we rip athletes for taking all the money. Kobe got ripped that last year with the Lakers because all he cared about was money and didn't care about the fact that the Lakers wouldn't have money to help build around it. Kobe, all he cared about was money. LeBron goes to the Miami Heat, took less money to go to the Miami Heat. He wasn't just chasing money. He was being a competitor. He wanted to win championships, and he went somewhere where he could do that, and then he got ripped for that. We get mad at athletes no matter what they do. I didn't mind when Kevin Durant left the Golden State Warriors. He gave them 9 years. People don't realize that. The Thunder. He gave the Thunder 9 years. He was there for 9 years before he decided he was going to move on and go to the Golden State Warriors. He's been in the league a while. I didn't mind that he left. Obviously, the controversy was going to the team that just knocked him out of the playoffs the year before, and I get that. But we move the goalposts so much in sports. We tell athletes you're wrong if you're just chasing money. And then when they take less money to go somewhere, we say, well, now you're just chasing rings. And then if they stay where they're at and don't win championships, we say you're a loser for not winning championships. When in reality, Michael Jordan, the only reason he didn't have to go chase championships is because his ownership and franchise gave him everything that he needed. You think if MJ didn't have Scottie Pippen, you think if MJ didn't have a Phil Jackson, you think if Michael Jordan didn't have a front office that continually drafted well and added to that roster, that he would have stuck around the entire time and didn't go bounce around elsewhere to chase the championship, the biggest competitor in the history of sports? You think he would have just sat around in Chicago and not won anything because he was waiting on the front office to do everything? No. People are hypocrites when it comes to sports, but baseball's different. Soto, this storyline with him, it'll be... People will bitch and complain because of the big money contract to the Dodgers. They won't be mad at Soto. They'll be mad at the Dodgers, and then we'll move on and forget all about it. So it's different.
I think one of the most admirable things an athlete can do in professional sports is sign a long-term deal with a city. I think what Joey Votto did with the Reds, spectacular. I know Kenner disagrees, and that maybe he should have pushed the front office more, yada, yada, yada. What Joey did for Cincinnati was give the Reds a window, and Reds ownership did not capitalize on having a Hall of Fame baseball player there. But he stayed with us. He could have gone. He could have left. He could have gone to the Dodgers. He could have gone to the Yankees. They would have been glad to take him. But he said, no, 10 years. We'll stay here for 10 years, and we'll ride it out. I commend that. And same thing with Mike Trout. Obviously, it's easy to sit here and say that if a team's going to offer you $250 million for 10 years, of course you're going to take it. And it's not all about, making the city great or being, for the fans, stuff like that. But I do think that does play a part of it because you can wait. You can sign a 3-year deal, wait, prove yourself, and go sign for double the money elsewhere. There are teams that will pay you double the money no matter where you sign in baseball. That's how it's always worked. So I commend guys that stay with one franchise for their whole career.
Yeah, I think that's a big thing that's getting lost in sports now is that in ring culture, whereas if you don't have a ring, your career's a waste. I mean, I was watching ESPN yesterday, and they said if Lamar Jackson doesn't get to a Super Bowl, his career's a waste. I think he's been pretty good. Like, we don't have to just say that if you're not winning championships, your career's a waste. But that's been the conversation around sports forever. And I think they really started with the LeBron Jordan debate and has kind of blossomed from there. And it's a shame because we're losing out on the ability to appreciate a lot of great players and a lot of great storylines that just fall short of a championship. And we've been told that nothing matters if you don't win that last game of the year. And that's not a good way to watch sports. That's not a good way to appreciate potentially great players. You're missing out on so much history if you're just focusing on the championships. I 100% agree with what Elliot's saying. I think the greatest thing that an athlete can do is sign a long-term deal with the team that drafted him, stay in that town, open up the window, say, hey, ownership, I'm here for the long term. Build around me. Yeah. I'm giving you an opportunity here. I think that's the greatest thing that an athlete can do. I think that's what Joe Burrow did. Joe Burrow did a 5-year extension in Cincinnati saying, hey, I'm locked in. Don't worry about the quarterback. Now let's go do everything else. I think that's a great thing for players to do. And that's why whenever we talk about about the LeBron and Jordan thing. I always say that ring in Cleveland to me is weighted as 2 or 3. To go back to Cleveland and do it for the team that drafted you, I think that means so much to do it for the fans that were there with you from day one, and especially in that case to go back home. But I do always just think that the player with the team that drafted them always just means a little bit more. I mean, how do we always talk about Kobe and Dirk? And even in football, Eli Manning, Phillip Rivers, Drew Brees. I mean, we associate him with the Saints. I know he came from the Chargers, but to stay with New Orleans that whole time when they weren't giving him the necessary pieces, that means so much to that city and everything that he did there. Tom Brady, before going to Tampa, was associated, that logo was Tom Brady. I think it means so much for these players to be associated with one organization, and we just don't see it in sports anymore.
No, we don't. And I know you mentioned, and by the way, it's not a trolling thing. I'm just putting that disclaimer out there. But you look at the Burrow situation. I mean, that's something to keep an eye on.
Absolutely. We talked about it last night.
And you have a guy that's as uber competitive as Burrow is. And it's it puts Burrow in a tough spot because, Burrow signs that extension, that 5-year extension, as you mentioned, Jake. And it's okay, he did his part. He's going to stick around and give you the most important piece to the puzzle to build around. But if over the next 5 years, the Bengals don't do what they're supposed to, and they do what they've done the last couple of years, which is, we're just going to hope that we drafted well enough, and we're going to get, to be fair, though, they would not get Orlando Brown. It's not like they've sat on their hands completely. They've been semi-aggressive. They haven't just gone all in like you would have liked them to over the last couple of years, especially before Burrow gets paid. But what if in the next couple of years, it's the same old, with what you're saying, the storyline is, yes, it's very commendable if Burrow sticks it out for the length of his career. But if the Bengals continue to flop and not give him everything he needs as far as a complete roster, he has the weapons offensively, but he needs the defense, special teams, but there's better coaching, whatever it is. If the Bengals don't give him that, I know it's commendable to stay, but you can't blame a guy if he does have that competitive bone in his body to say, hey, I want to be loyal to these fans, but at the end of the day, I'm too good to end my career without winning a championship. And I'm not going there with Burrow yet, but if it does get to that point, that is something to think about. You guys mentioned it yesterday. I always forget, Burrow's an older quarterback. He's not super young. He was an older quarterback coming out of the draft, and there were some years of a younger quarterback that the Bengals missed out on.
No, it's worrisome. It's certainly scary. I don't like to ever say that pro athletes owe anything to the city or the fans, but if you are going to say that Joe Burrow owed anything to the city, it's that first extension. You give him a chance to build everything around you after that Super Bowl appearance, after the AFC Championship appearance. You had some injuries that foiled the years of that rookie contract. So to sign a 5-year extension, lock it in Cincinnati and build around that, you give the front office every chance that they deserve in terms of going to get a Super Bowl with the quarterback they drafted number 1. Now, if they don't capitalize on that 5-year window, I don't expect or need Joe Burrow to stay. Would I like it? Absolutely. Would it ruin me if he signed somewhere else? Absolutely. It'd probably be one of the saddest I've ever been. He's the best player in this franchise's history, at least in my opinion, and to see him go play for any years of his prime in another uniform would make me sick. But if the front office is going to turn up their nose at putting a competitive team out there while he's having one of the best quarterback seasons of all time, I can't blame him for not wanting to stick around. It's the same conversation we had with Trey Hendrickson. He signed a 2-year extension after the Bengals brought him in off of free agency to stay in Cincinnati, take that pressure off the front office's shoulders. Now he's asking to be paid like the player he is on a team that's not winning. And you can say the whole, we'll give you a little hometown discount because we're going to compete for a Super Bowl when you are competing for a Super Bowl. But when you're 4-7, those players want big money. It's a different conversation. And I think the Bengals are going to run into that with a lot of people this offseason. And whether that whole, we're going to the AFC Championship, we're going to the Super Bowl every year, that pitch doesn't necessarily fly anymore if you don't win out and turn this season around. So they're going to have to cough up some serious money to get a serious roster in town. They're going to have to keep some key pieces locked in Cincinnati in order to be competitive next year. And if they aren't competitive for the next however many years of Joe Burrow's contract, then I think we are having a really difficult conversation in 4 or 5 years.
It would be the death. Maybe that's an over-exaggeration, but it seems like it would be the death of the franchise if that were to happen. No Super Bowl victories and Joe Burrow leaves after his contract.
This feels like a teetering on the cliff point for both franchises in Cincinnati.
Oh, yeah.
You let Ellie walk, you let Burrow walk without capitalizing on either of these windows. What are the fans holding their breath for anymore?
The Reds, in the NFL, I still stand by it. You can find another Joe Burrow in 20 years.
You'll be bad enough that you're number 1. But
correct.
Again, you're just holding your breath that it's not a Bryce Young
yeah.
or a Jamarcus Russell or any of these number 1 overall quarterbacks that don't work.
The Reds, if you don't capitalize with Ellie De La Cruz because you don't want to pay him and you don't want to spend money, that's just the way the organization is, and that's there's no fixing that. That's how it is forever in perpetuity. That's why I think that the Reds winning a World Series would be a miracle. It would take legitimately a miracle for the Reds to get all the way there. But that's where it is in Cincinnati, baby. But Bearcats look good. Bearcats basketball, they're like top 5 in KenPom. So
Oh, yeah.
let's get the boys fired up. That's how we'll end it. We'll end it on a positive note there.
Yeah, well, I have to end it with this final take, and it might be a little negative, but no, you last thing, mention the Reds. That's what scares the hell out of me the most about this LA run coming up, because you have arguably one of the best, if not the best, manager in baseball. You have one of the most exciting players in the history of the franchise already in Ellie De La Cruz, just a couple years into his career. You have a guy that finished top 10 in Cy Young. You have so many key pieces. And if ownership can't find a way to spend enough money to fill gaps and draft and develop to fill gaps, if they can't get it done here, I don't know another scenario that could present itself moving forward that we will feel confident that this team can ever win again in today's modern baseball. That's why it's exciting. It's exciting to have Francona. It's exciting to have Ellie De La Cruz and Hunter Green and this rotation and some of these key pieces like Matt McClain and others. But if you can't do it with them, who the hell can you do it with? And that's the scary part. And the same thing, I get the Bengals' point of view too. You have one of the best quarterbacks in football, one of the most exciting quarterbacks in football right now, and one of the most exciting wide receivers, if not the best wide receiver in football. And you can't win with them. Who can you win with? That's going to be the concern. It's exciting and scary at the same time because it can really kill a fan base if you don't come away with that, something to show for that. Are you confident that these franchises could provide you something in the future post these guys to make you feel like you can get back to the expectation? That's the big key.
We have breaking news, Kenner, that we can break after the break.
I like that. We'll be right back. Very long 2 segments to open up the show. It's a Friday/Wednesday show. It doesn't matter. How are those cookies in the studio? Are they still there? We'll be right back. More Off the Bench when we come back. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Reardon, and Jacob Tissett with you here. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Elliot teased breaking news before we took pause in the show. So, Elliot, what's the breaking news? What's happening in the world of sports?
We've got a quarterback competition in Minnesota. They're going to look at Sam Darnold in the eye and say, all right, buddy, you got to earn it now because Daniel Jones has made his way to the Minnesota Vikings. How about that?
I think it's a great move. I think it's an absolutely phenomenal move. I think the only issue with the Vikings so far this year is that you don't necessarily trust Sam Darnold to be a quarterback that can get you anywhere. And if you can just go back and forth between Darnold and Daniel Jones and just hit the on weeks for both of them, then you'll be fine.
Yeah.
Because they're both going to go up and down all year long. You're just going to have to run, I guess, a pseudo 2-quarterback system and ride the hot hand.
Yeah. I think it's a fine move. I will say this. Sam Darnold probably doesn't do great things for his confidence.
What does it do for J.J. McCarthy?
Yeah. J.J. McCarthy, I mean, that was a terrible draft pick, but good luck to him.
If you said it, I apologize, but, was there any details of, is it just a sign for the rest of the year?
Yeah.
Okay. So it may not do anything for J.J. McCarthy unless it's one
I'm saying, if these guys go out there and tear it up, are you really changing quarterbacks next year? I mean, Sam Darnold has you at 9-2.
Of course I don't.
Yep.
Of course you don't. Why would you?
But you drafted the guy 10th overall.
Why would? I think it was a terrible draft pick. I think everybody knew it was a terrible draft pick. We'll see if he ever comes out to play. I'm sure one day he's going to. But absolutely, why would you change quarterbacks after the season that Sam Darnold's had? There's no reason to. I'd argue it would be organizational malpractice.
Well, I mean, Sam Darnold had a very hot start to the season. I do think he's come down to earth a little bit as of late. Now, this Vikings team,
a little bit, but he's still pretty damn solid.
He's top 10 in yards, top 5 in touchdowns. He's still that is obviously front loaded. I get it, but I mean,
At
he's
least you
playing
said that.
good enough football.
That was what I was going to counter with. Yeah.
No, it is. I understand that, but he is playing really still good football. I mean, they started 5-0, they lost 2 games, and now they've won 4 in a row. Like,
Yeah.
they're not burning the world down against playoff teams, at least not since that opening stretch, but they're winning the games they're supposed to win, and he's playing decent level of football, excluding that Jacksonville game, which they still snuck out of with a win. So that is still the main thing that I'm worried about with the Vikings is Sam Darnold and whether or not he's going to turn back into a pumpkin at the end of this year, which I would imagine he does. And then they turn to Daniel Jones, and maybe they can ride that hot hand for a little bit. But I don't think either of these quarterbacks are Super Bowl contender, and I don't think that's breaking news to say. That's not some kind of hot take. I do think the interesting nugget here, Daniel Jones, a Viking now, the only reason Daniel Jones is still in the league is the Vikings.
Yeah.
He beat them in the first round of the playoffs, which got him this contract extension. Now full circle after being cut on the last year of that extension, he ends up as the Vikings backup / maybe starter down the line. So kind of interesting.
I also don't think it's even front-loaded. He's thrown for far more yards in his last 5 games. His first 5 games, he had 11 touchdowns, and that's 1, 2, 3, 4 interceptions. His last 5 games, he's had 9 touchdowns, 5 interceptions, but he's thrown for a ton more yards. I don't know. I think he's had still a solid year. 21-10 ratio, almost 70% completion percentage. I'm certainly not riding with J.J. McCarthy next year.
I'm with you
when your
on that.
quarterback's doing that.
And I've admitted I'm wrong on Darnold before. I was out on him coming in. I'm like, well, if the Vikings are like touting that he's their guy, I was like, I don't feel good about the Vikings, but they're 9-2.
Yeah, I was out on
right.
Darnold too. Oh wait, I wasn't. I forgot I was in on Darnold.
He was in on Darnold.
Whatever.
7th year bump, Kinner. I tried to tell you.
Jacob knows ball. By the way, you know how many times I got told I don't know ball yesterday just because of
Oh
the Ohio State take?
no! Oh
I got
no!
dunked on, and he doesn't get it. No, I get it.
That's
I just
tough.
don't agree with you. I mean, yeah, is what it is. But I probably don't know ball, to be honest. It don't matter. If I don't know ball, I've pretended to know ball long enough to keep my job for 10 years. So, I mean, there's that. But it is what it is. All right, Justin Kinner, Casey McCollister, Elliot Ring, Jacob Tissett. By the way, have I been a complete jerk and not even brought Casey on at all today? Casey, is he even there? Is he wearing a parka? I mean, it is cold today. How cold is it in the studio?
He's bundled.
How are you, Casey? Good morning.
Good morning. Good morning, guys. Glad to be on the show.
What's up?
Okay, not much.
Put the
Not
hood
a
up.
lot. Put the hood up? You want me to go
Yeah.
all Palpatine on you?
Yeah.
Oh, I like that.
There it is.
Do it. That's good stuff right there. That's some good stuff. Jeez Louise.
Casey, will you be
let's
watching?
talk-
Actually, real quick.
Keep going.
Casey, will you be watching any Thanksgiving movies on Thanksgiving? Because there's only one. There's only one Thanksgiving movie.
What movie would that be?
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. It's the only movie that they've ever made for Thanksgiving time. Will you be watching
I don't
that
think
movie?
that's true.
Yeah, but it's the only one that everybody. What's the other Thanksgiving movie?
I don't know. There has to be more than one.
Kenner, you're older than I am. What's the other Thanksgiving movie?
Are there Thanksgiving movies?
Planes, Trains, and Automobiles. Just named one.
I've never even seen that.
Or is that like a?
You've never seen Planes, Trains, and Automobiles?
Don't they have a Thanksgiving meal in Blindside?
Oh, Kenner. Yeah, but that's not a
Oh, yes.
Thanksgiving movie.
They do have a Thanksgiving meal. That's my favorite Thanksgiving movie.
Yeah, but that's not
the
a
Blind Side.
They were leading up to Thanksgiving in Planes, Trains, and Automobiles.
Is there like a Lampoon's Vacation Thanksgiving movie?
No.
No.
They just did it for Christmas in Europe.
I'm going to go with The Blind Side,
Blindside Thanksgiving
which
movie.
was a lie, which was a joke and a sham of a movie.
People do forget Blindside was a complete farce. They do forget that.
People were mad at Sandra Bullock. Why are you mad at Sandra Bullock?
I'm mad at Sandra
the time
Bullock.
It was real. But at the time, everyone thought the story was real.
Yeah.
I mean, like, you know.
Yeah,
it
this
is what it is.
behemoth of a man doesn't know how to play football at all. Let's have Sandra Bullock teach him how to block.
I love that movie.
It's a great movie. It's a great movie.
I was a huge fan of that
Jesus.
movie. I don't even
Yeah,
know.
no, that was a great one. That's a great movie.
More off the bench when we come back. We are back. Justin Kenner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rearing, Jacob Tistet with you here. This is Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. Last show of the week. We'll be back starting next Monday, of course, but excited to be with you here today. Let's talk a little Bearcat football. Elliot, you had a tweet over the weekend about Satterfield, the head coach for the Bearcats. And Satterfield's a guy that, I was kind of poking fun at coming into the year. And then all of a sudden the Bearcats were 5-2 and Sorsby. And there was just a lot to like about this Bearcat team at the time. I mean, you look at the loss against Pitt. That was a horrific way to lose all the way back in week 2. But Pitt at one point looked like one of the top teams in college football, at least from the ACC standpoint, right? Like you look at it from there. But since then, 5-2, I was hyping them up heading into the Colorado game. I liked their chances against Colorado, and they lose 34-23 against the Buffs. And then since then, they've lost 4 straight, and they just look totally flat. I mean, it looks like they had all the energy and excitement heading into that Colorado game. They lose that Colorado game. It's like they lost their chance to compete in the Big 12 championship game. And it's like since then, they just don't look like the same football team. You questioned whether or not you still believed in Satterfield over the weekend on Twitter. I'm just curious your thoughts. Obviously, you're the big Bearcat fan here, but your perception of this Bearcat team is what? Are you starting to be a little out on Satterfield when it's all said and done?
I was never in on Satterfield, and I tried to get in when they were playing well and Sorsby was throwing well. Sorsby hasn't looked good for 4 weeks in this 4-game losing streak they've been on here. He just hasn't been good.
100 for 66 yards against Iowa State.
I mean, it's been bad. It's been absolutely terrible, and there's no way around it. This is where I don't know enough about football to blame coaching, but it seems like when you have 5 wins with a chance to win a bowl game in Colorado, or get to a bowl game, clinch a bowl game in Colorado, and then completely fall apart down the stretch, that has to be on somebody. And again, I'm going to blame the coaching staff. I'm going to blame them. The roster wasn't great. The roster wasn't great coming in. The defense is woeful. But you have the talent offensively. At least you had it. Enough of it to win in the Big 12. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the Big 12 is a good football conference.
I mean, you beat a team that's probably going to go to the playoff.
And it's you had the momentum, and then you lost it all. Every ounce of momentum the Bearcats had was snatched away. To lose 5 games in a row, to miss a bowl game, in my opinion, is fireable enough. UC football, despite what Jacob says, whether or not they're a great program, whether yada yada yada, there are high expectations for the UC football program, and for back-to-back seasons to have utter failure is not good. The Big 12 isn't a good football conference. It's not. There are 6 wins on the table every single year. There should be, at least for the foreseeable future. That could change. But there are bad enough teams where making a bowl game shouldn't be some impossible feat. They could still do it on Saturday. They can absolutely make a bowl game. But I'm not going to bet on it, and nobody would. They haven't looked like a good team in 4 weeks. Satterfield shouldn't have been here to begin with. They signed him to 6 years or whatever that was. It's nonsense. Wait till the year and get rid of him. And we start reviving the program again. Hopefully with somebody who knows what they're doing. And hopefully it's somebody who wasn't booted out of their last program, who wasn't begged and pleaded and applauded whenever he decided to leave that program. So, it's utter frustration. If you're a UC football fan right now, you're looking at this roster, you're looking at the program and saying, clearly there's one easy answer to fix this, and it's to fire the head coach. And I don't see another way around it. If you want to give him another year, fine. But, I mean, Cunningham can't keep missing on guys. So if Wes Miller, God, we need Wes Miller to be good more than we need anything to be good ever. That's honest to God, that's what he needs. That's Cunningham's guy. You can't miss on him because you've missed on Satterfield in a big way. Literally I've never seen such unanimous disdain for a hire and have that hire go exactly as everybody thought unanimously. I've never seen that. And it didn't work out. We'll see if he makes the move to get rid of him in the offseason. But it's been a disaster. It's been a train wreck.
I guess my only confusion with the conversation UC fans are having about this season is, I guess, what did you expect? Because the preseason win total was 5.5. The whole debate all offseason was whether or not this team's going to make a bowl game. We thought they were going to be right on the edge of 6-6, and that's exactly where they are. They have a game against TCU here in the last week to make a bowl game. If they lose it, they finish a half game under what they were expected to win. Like this isn't some like the start of the season was a shock. I think they've just come back to level. Satterfield going 8-4 this year would have been a massive surprise. I know a lot of people recalibrated expectations when you're sitting at what was it, 5-2,
and you have
going into Colorado.
You have to reset those.
I don't think that's fair in college football. I don't think that's fair at all. I think this is a team and a roster that is a 6-6 roster, and that's right what they're playing for. I think to act like Satterfield was magically expected to do better than this year is unfair to him and unfair to the program, in all honesty, because they weren't. This is exactly where they were expected to be this season. And you beat a team that's probably going to go to the college football playoff, or at least they're favored for it right now in Arizona State. There's some good wins this season for Scott Satterfield. I think there's some stuff you can build on. I mean, you beat a Miami team that earlier in the season, when they got that win, we didn't think it was anything special because they started slow. Miami's going to win the MAC. I'm not saying that's the barometer UC wants to be at, but to beat a Miami team in that rivalry that you lost to last year, a team that's going to win the MAC, there's some good wins to build on this season. I don't know what you learned new about Scott Satterfield this year, because he did exactly what he was expected to do. And if he wins the 6th game, he did more than he was expected to do.
I think.
Go ahead.
No, the only thing I was going to point out was I agree with you because I had no expectations for him. But when you start out 5-2, and you weren't
I
just
get
winning
that. I get
games,
that.
like it's starting out 5-2, and then having the offense look as good as it did, Sorsby playing as well as he was, and then you lose to Colorado, and then they just haven't been the same football team since that 5-2 start. I think if the 5 or 6 wins were sprinkled throughout the season, that's one thing. I think it's that you were 5-2 to start with good wins over some quality teams to start, competitive even in losses. That Pitt game still was very, now it's whatever. It's just one of the losses. But at the beginning, that was such a loss that we circled at one point and said, man, if they just get one stop in that second half, all of a sudden, this is a team that was probably going to be in the conversation for the Big 12 championship. And had they beat Colorado, that would have been the case. If the 5 wins they have now were sprinkled throughout the season up to this point, I'm with you 100%. This is what we expected. I just think that you got to pivot with the way the team was looking at a certain point. They were playing at a very decent level at the halfway point of the season. Yeah. And then it's like they just fell off a cliff. And there's been no significant injury to really kind of point to that fall off. And now it looks like a team that's not even trying. So when you start questioning the effort, I think that's the difference, Jay, because I'm with you. This is when we look back at the win total for the year, it's going to be like they might match it or surpass it and say it was not a terrible year. It just is going to feel terrible when it ends because of how poorly they're playing down the stretch after getting people's hopes up a little bit, being 5-2 heading into Colorado.
If you're going to fire Scott Satterfield because you think the team quit on him, that's completely fine. I just think it's insane to fire Scott Satterfield for not making a bowl game in a season where that was the question going in.
No. You're not firing him because they missed out on a bowl game. You fired him because the team looks completely lost. Well, that's why you're fired, and it looks like there's no direction.
Out of these 4 losses, the only game you were favored in was West Virginia, right?
And they should have beaten West Virginia.
They should have beaten West Virginia, absolutely. And they should have beaten Pitt, and they should have beaten Texas Tech. And all those games, if you flip those games, then you're talking about a team that's not only going to a bowl game, but talking about a Big 12 championship potentially based on tiebreakers.
Yeah, I mean, my thing is,
I'm just saying they're a lot closer than we even expected them to be this season.
You put up 15 points against Kansas State. You put up 17 against Iowa State. And I know those 2 teams are solid. I mean, I'm not going to sit here and say those are bad teams. But the offense just hasn't been there. You lose 44-41. If all these were shootouts.
Well, you just listed 2 top 25 teams. UC's not close to that.
No, I'm aware of that. But it's at the same time, if you're losing in ways that if you're losing in ways that make sense. If you're losing because the offense still looks solid, putting up 100 points, or not 100 points, putting up 30 points, 25 points, and you're losing a shootout, that's one thing. If the offense looks completely dead and the silly nonsense turnovers, they forced a fumble on Saturday against Kansas State. It was fourth and long. They forced a fumble. Ball rolls past the first down marker in the second half. The UC defense kicks the ball out of bounds. I mean, they're such silly mistakes that you can't even rationalize. So I'm going to say that Scott Satterfield didn't live up to expectations. I get the 5.5 thing, but everybody I would say thinks that bowl game was the expectation, that 6 wins was. I'm not going to say I was, because coming into the year, I certainly didn't think the Bearcats were going to win 6 games. It's just it is what it is. I think if they're serious about the program, they move on.
Important thing to talk about every time we talk about Scott Satterfield. If he's fired before the 31st of December this year, it's an $8 million buyout. 31st of next year, $4 million buyout. 31st of 2026, $2.5 million buyout. 2027, 1.5. 2028, $1 million.
In Cincinnati, they have all the money in the world, so that's fine. Just buy him out. No,
I would imagine the first firing point is next year. I just can't imagine you're biting $4 million for 12 games.
It's fair.
But at the same time, Jake, though, it all depends. When schools like this, you get that one desperate donor. You get that one desperate contributor that's going to say, hey, we'll take care of it. And that usually is what happens sometimes in these particular situations when programs get desperate. But again, that's only if they feel like they're close to something. If they don't feel like they're close to something, then who knows? But the other, I guess the one positive spin, Elliot, I know when we talked about this a few weeks ago, Sorsby was a piece that we were looking at saying, man, like, will he be a Bearcat next year, regardless of who the head coach is, because he was playing at such a high level that he could be one of those pieces that kind of gets bought and plucked away from one of those bigger schools. But maybe him playing as inconsistent as he has down the stretch might save the Bearcats a little bit and keep him around for an additional year. We'll see what happens there.
Was there too much pressure put on him too quickly?
On who?
Is he a sophomore? What is he?
He's a sophomore. He played really well out of the gate, but I don't know that it's that much of a shock that he would come back to the mean a little bit.
No, I wouldn't say it's not a complete shock, but I expect more. I mean, we've been talking about benching him for a couple weeks now, making a quarterback change.
Right, but that's what I'm talking about then. Is that not playing into it a little bit as well?
But if you played so good against teams, like, as you said, are going to make the playoffs. So it's like, if you beat Arizona State looking as good as you did, and maybe that's not a great barometer. He was, 206 yards for an interception.
Yeah.
But I don't think the team is as good as it was to start the year. I think it's trailed off, and you can't have it happen.
I guess the question that I was asking then, is that the coach or is that just players trailing off?
I'm going to blame the coach, but it certainly could be the other thing.
All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. They have TCU to close out their regular season coming up this weekend. Any closing thoughts on the Bearcats, Elliot, before we move on?
Go Wes Miller, go. Take us to the promised land, baby. We got one team.
There you go.
Do you guys do the paw?
The paw.
Like the Bears do the paw? I feel like UC could do the paw.
I don't think we do the paw.
Maybe I'll start doing the paw.
You'll do the paw for us?
Maybe.
I like that.
More Off the Bench when we come back. Albert Breer was on the Dan Patrick Show yesterday, and I happened to catch the end of it. And Dan Patrick had asked him regarding the possibility, not the possibility, we know there's going to be head coaching changes like there is each and every single offseason. And I know we're quite a little bit away from the offseason, but with already two teams making decisions on head coaches, the Saints moving on from their head coach, of course, and we've seen the teams that have already made those changes, the Jets moving on from Saleh earlier in the year. He says that he predicts that there will be about 7 to 10 coaching changes when the offseason officially gets here. Now, we've already seen 2 coaching changes happen midseason. I think that the only other coach, and correct me if I'm wrong, guys, I think the only other coach that we could potentially see a change in the middle of the season, Doug Peterson. I think some people are kind of surprised that he's survived this long into the year. Before we get to that total list of the coaches that we think could be on the move or the teams that can move on from their head coach, do you anticipate any other coaches being let go between now and when the playoffs start in January?
I don't.
No.
I don't even think Doug Peterson will be. I think he would have by now if that was their plan. I think all the coaches in the NFL will be coaching their teams till the end of the year at this point.
I agree.
7 to 10 potential coaching changes according to Albert Breer. Who do we think some of those are going to be. Obviously, Jets, Saints have already made theirs. The two teams I think that I don't want to say are locks, but you would have to think, the Jags will make a coaching change.
Yep.
In the offseason, move on from Doug Peterson, and who that coach is, we don't know, obviously. But the Cowboys, would you add them to that list? Who would be on your list of teams that you feel confident are going to have a new head coach in 25?
I would not put the Cowboys on that list. I think they should. I don't know that they will. I think Mike McCarthy, still more likely than not, will be back, and Dak will be playing quarterback. I think it's a dumb move, but if I had to guess, I think that's what Jerry's going to do.
I think he's going to be on the hot seat for sure. The locker room speaking out against him consistently is a tough look, and I don't know if you can recover from that, especially after this year. I don't necessarily blame him for this entire season, but it's Jerry Jones only has X amount of years left on this earth. He's going to try to win as much as he can during that time, and that answer probably isn't with Mike McCarthy. Another big one it would be Brian Dable of the Giants.
Almost certainly.
I don't know if he will, because I think he's regarded as a good coach. I just don't. I think he was with Daniel Jones, and Daniel Jones is gone, and usually that's how that works. The quarterback and the coach are tethered a little bit together. Another one would be who's Eberflus of the Bears. I think there's a chance that Eberflus is gone. I think those are the hottest names on the seat right now. I don't think much else. That's why I was surprised. I was surprised by 7 to 10 names.
I think Antonio Pierce will be fired. I think Gerard Mayo will be fired as well.
You
Raiders
think Mayo
and
will be
Patriots,
fired?
yes.
Really?
I think Mayo was already
Really?
fired, and he's coaching out the rest of the season.
Really?
Yes. He's been a horrendous coach, and the players hate him.
Really?
Yeah. Yeah, he's been absolutely abysmal, and I think they're going to want to get an offensive guy in there with Drake May. I would expect the Patriots to move on. I think Antonio Pierce, that experiment's over as well. I don't think he's getting it done with the Raiders. I do think the interesting thing about the Giants is, do you move on from Brian Dable if you look at just the records with Daniel Jones and the win-loss and all that stuff? The answer seems like a pretty clear yes. But who do you want if you draft a rookie quarterback in the top 5?
Yeah.
A great offensive mind who has a pretty quarterback-friendly offense? Isn't that just Brian Dable?
Just Dable.
So why wouldn't you give him another shot with a quarterback that you believe in a little bit more? I guess you have to go back to the conversation of what you expected Daniel Jones to be and how much he let you down compared to those expectations. I think that's going to be whether or not Brian Dable is out of New York. And if he is, and the Bengals happen to make a change, I guess that's another one that's on the list, is potentially Zach Taylor, even though I don't think it's likely. If the Bengals made a change, needed a new play caller, that'd be the first name I called if he's fired from New York. I would love Brian Dable calling plays in this offense. I think he's a phenomenal play caller. And if he can get back to that instead of being a head coach, I think that'd be great for him. Another name I think that is certainly on the hot seat, and everyone might roll their eyes, but I don't really think it's that hot of a take if you listen to what's coming out of their front office. I think Kyle Shanahan is on the way out of San Francisco. Maybe not this year, but certainly a really, really hot seat next year if this continues to crumble. They're sitting at 5-6 with one of the most expensive rosters in football, and that's not changing anytime soon. You have to pay Brock Purdy this offseason. A lot of those extensions are just now kicking in this year and next year when you're talking about Ayuk and the big money for Deebo Samuel and a lot of that stuff. Nick Bosa, Dre Greenlaw, Fred Warner. You've extended a lot of these guys to big money contracts, and it hasn't resulted in a Super Bowl. And I think the ownership is starting to get fed up with that a little bit. I think Kyle Shanahan could get fired from San Francisco, in which case I think there'd be a line about a mile long to hire him.
Yep.
One thing I read this morning, too, and again, it's just these are the little rumors that kind of pop around. You guys mentioned the Giants a little bit ago. Belichick's name has been tied to the Giants in the past of like just a spot to keep an eye on, but his relationship with Aaron Rodgers, if the Giants with that top 5 pick, they could go quarterback route with the idea to sit behind Aaron Rodgers for a year, pair Bill Belichick and him together, potentially an option there. I guess the other question I have, too, is like not Bill Belichick, but Aaron Rodgers. Is this his last year? If he does play again next season, it's obviously not going to be with the Jets. He wanted to play in New York. The Giants are an option if they wanted to go that route. It would be it wouldn't surprise me if New York goes that route just because it's New York. You bring in Bill Belichick and you bring in a veteran quarterback, it obviously puts you in that win now mode. They have a good defense. You have neighbors. Make a couple moves in the offseason. See where you go from there. How crazy is that possibility of Belichick and Aaron Rodgers teaming up with the Giants in 25?
He wants to stay in New York. I listened to the Pat McAfee show yesterday. It seems like he wants to stay in New York, so maybe he would. I mean, he certainly wouldn't care about the rivalry of Giants-Jets to just go switch over to the other side of the locker room. I guess is it the same locker room? I don't even know how that works.
Two different
locker rooms. But yeah, I could see. I mean, Aaron Rodgers is not going to retire. I think he's said that openly. He does not want to retire. He doesn't want to make this the last year of his career, and I'm sure he doesn't want to end his career on such a bad note as it ended here in New York. But we'll see. I could see him go to the Giants. I could see him go to the Giants on a 1-year deal. I'm not saying that would be the answer. It probably wouldn't be the answer, but
certainly wouldn't be.
If you go that route, then do you keep Dable? Yeah, that's what I would.
You wouldn't restart with.
That's what I would say.
I don't think you'd restart with a 40-year-old quarterback. You'd give Dable that chance. But I think the only other option really for Rodgers would be Tennessee. I think him going to the Titans, he was linked there before.
Seriously?
He was linked there before he signed with the Jets. I think if he wants to play another year, they're going to need a quarterback. If they're unable to get one high enough in the draft, maybe he goes there on a 1-year deal. I think the most likely opportunity or option for Rodgers next season is that he is on the Jets or he is retired. I think those are the two options for Aaron Rodgers. I would wager that he would be the Jets quarterback if I could find that line somewhere. I think he will play quarterback for the Jets next year if I had to guess. But the only two options in free agency, I think, are the Titans and Giants.
I'd tell you what, because there's just no realistic landing spot for him. I'm looking around at teams, and I'm like, there's just in Tennessee, if he does, like, you're not winning there. Like, even if you get a good version of Aaron, I mean, if that's the case, Aaron Rodgers is just playing to play, but I'd like to think he if he's going to play and go through all the physicality that he'd go through at his age, that a chance to play for a Super Bowl would be to make it worth it, to go through that grind and to go do all that. You would think that he would, at his age, only do it if there's a possibility of him going somewhere to win. I just don't know if that opportunity presents itself anywhere. Seattle doesn't just move on from Geno Smith for no reason, right?
Bagel.
Like, you don't move on from Geno for Aaron Rodgers, but I love the prospect of Aaron Rodgers with Lockett and with that wide receiving unit over there. I'm intrigued by that, but again, I'm not convinced that Aaron Rodgers is better than Geno right now. So that's one. Minnesota, they just go get obviously Daniel Jones. And I don't think you move on with the way Sam Darnold's played. I'm not convinced that Aaron Rodgers is better than the production that you're getting from him at this point. I don't know. I'm with you, Jake. I don't really know where else he could potentially land. There's no other landing spot that makes sense for him right now. Carolina is not good, and they've kind of liked what they've seen from the progression of Bryce Young as of late. The Falcons have a lot invested in their quarterback situation. Tampa's okay with Baker Mayfield. And the Saints, I mean, there's a lot of holes and issues there. They're not an Aaron Rodgers away from anything from that regard. So, yeah, there's just not a good landing spot for him at this point.
He's not going to go anywhere that has a losing record that has no chance to win next year. He's going to go somewhere that has a solid roster and that has the capabilities of winning. And that probably, honestly, is still the Jets. It's been a horrible disaster of a year, but I do think the defense is solid if you give him one more year at it. So I don't think Aaron Rodgers is a good quarterback anymore. I think we've seen it. I think this is nearing the end for sure. He's 40 years old, but I think he's got one more year left in the tank. I imagine he'll be with the Jets next season. I'd imagine so.
If he plays for a team that's not the Jets, he'll be picking top 5 in the draft.
So again, Albert Breer says 7 to 10 coaching changes with the teams you guys threw out there. Again, obviously Jets, Saints already moved on from their coaches. That's 2. You have the Cowboys, Jaguars. That's 4. Giants, Bears is 6. And then Jake, you threw out the Raiders and the Patriots as the other 2 potentially. I do not think the Bengals move on from Zach Taylor. I'm off that. Obviously, crazy things can happen in the final month and whatever's the change of the season, but I don't anticipate that being the case. There were some questions about Cleveland with Stefanski, but Breer came out the Thursday Night Football game last week, came out and said that it sounds like, according to sources, that Cleveland is rolling forward with Andrew Berry and Kevin Stefanski, with ownership bringing both back for next season. And as well as Deshaun Watson, but that's an argument and a painful talk for another time. But yeah, so it looks like those are your candidates most likely. Belichick coaching again. Where the hell was he coach? What fits? What makes sense for him? Because if I'm drafting a rookie quarterback, I don't really want Belichick touching my rookie quarterback at that point. Like who's where does he? What makes sense for Belichick at that point?
A team with a dumb GM. Hiring Bill Belichick to coach your team in 2024 makes no sense. I think it would be a terrible move for any team that's trying to win. I think it'd be a terrible move for any team that's trying to rebuild. I don't think Bill Belichick's even remotely a desirable candidate in this head coaching search.
But just how many years do you get with him? Like how many years? I mean, how old is he? He's 75 years old.
He could coach for 10 years. I don't think he's a good football coach right now. I don't want him running my football team. He's a terrible drafter.
Was he a system coach?
He was a great coach in 2010. If I could hire him a decade ago with a different NFL model, then yeah, I'd love Bill Belichick. But I'd rather have Zach Taylor coach my team than Bill Belichick right now, and it's not particularly close in my mind. I don't think Bill Belichick is a great coach in this era of football, and I think that's why he wasn't hired this offseason. I think you'd rather have an offensive mind or a young defensive coach rather than a guy who's set in his ways and needs a lot of player personnel control to take the job.
What if he was to say, I don't want the GM position, that I'll just coach, I'll cook with the ingredients that are there? I
wouldn't want him. I would not want him.
I can't get on board with saying a guy that's won as many Super Bowls as him, fresh out of the league, that just doesn't fit in today's football. I just can't get on board with that.
But he hasn't fit for the last few years in New England either without Brady. They were terrible.
Their roster sucked. I mean, I don't
who
think
who drafted that roster? Who was their GM?
What did I just say? I just said if he was to say he didn't want the GM responsibilities.
That's what I'm saying, though. But so you want a coach who was a coach and a GM to do something he's never done before, be a coach, and not have player personnel control.
Belichick just doesn't know how to coach all of a sudden? That doesn't make sense.
I do not think Bill Belichick is a good coach in the NFL right now. I do not think he's a top.
But based on what, though?
Based on the way the game has changed. I don't think he was a good coach at the end of his time in New England. I think that's part of the reason why they're in such a bad spot that they're in right now. I don't think people want to play for him. I don't think that's a culture that's desirable for free agents. I don't think that's a culture that's a winning model anymore. I don't think players with the money that's floating around the NFL anymore want to do the Patriot way. I don't think that works. I think you need coaches that are more pro player than do it my way or take the highway. I don't think that works anymore in the NFL. I think you need to toe that line and be friendly with the team. And I don't think Bill can do that. I don't think that's the model that he wants to run as the coach of a football team. And I respect that. And it got him a lot of rings. I just don't think that model works in the NFL anymore.
The only place I could see him is the Jets.
I said Philadelphia.
Philadelphia? Really?
Yeah.
Philadelphia. Maybe. Yeah.
If it implodes again, I don't think it's going to happen. I think Philadelphia's a really good team. I think they're going to win a lot and potentially go to a Super Bowl, and Sirianni's good. But
yeah,
if it goes off the deep end again and they need a super quick fix, because Lurie's not going to wait. Lurie's not going to wait. He thinks he can win right now.
Sirianni's one of those two. Like, they're winning right now. It's reminding me of Zach Taylor a bit, where I'm hearing a lot out of Philadelphia where they're winning in spite of their coach.
Yeah,
because
the thing with Sirianni is his bit just gets so old so fast if you lose like one game, which is why he puts himself in that bad spot, I think.
Yeah, the game that they played in Cleveland, like they won, they beat Cleveland. It felt like they lost because he's screaming at fans, getting in like just these like arguments on the sideline. It just was you would have thought the Eagles lost that game with the vibes coming out of it. Since then, they flipped that switch and they've been a completely different team. But Zach Taylor was one of the few coaches I could think of where I'm like, man, when their team wins, he's not getting any credit for it. But when they lose, he gets all the blame. And that's kind of Sirianni right now. No, I don't hear anyone propping up Sirianni at this point. But you're right. The second they start losing, he's going to get every finger pointed at him when that's the case. So we'll see what ends up happening. But no, they're Saquon Barkley. I mean, my goodness. You look at we talk about the running back position. It's obviously easy to replace running back production. But those two are different running backs. You talk about Saquon Barkley, and obviously, you look what the Ravens are getting from Derrick Henry, and then Christian McCaffrey. Almost said Christian Encarnacion Strand. Don't know why I did that. Wow. But CMC. There you go. All right, Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers, Chatterbox Sports on YouTube, ESPN 1410 Wing AM in Dayton. I don't really, we'll just go with the flow to close out the radio side when we come back. A little buy or sell.
We got to give some Thanksgiving picks.
Yeah. Yes. So we'll be right back. Off the Bench. More next. All right, and we are back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Ruing, Jacob Sitson. You said Thanksgiving Day picks. Are we doing Thanksgiving buy or sell, or are you talking about the sports show, the NFL picks?
I was gonna say let's pick the 3 games. Let's pick the 3 NFL games. Chase Wellman, by the way, super chat. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody. Happy Thanksgiving to you. I was gonna say happy birthday. Happy Thanksgiving to you, Chase.
Well, happy birthday as well.
But yeah, Thanksgiving NFL slate. I should have looked at the moon thing. I haven't looked at the wax and gibbous yet.
Are we supposed to? Will it matter?
Does it matter?
Is it a gibbous?
I don't know. That's why I was gonna find it.
Kenner, did you bet based on the moon phases last year?
I didn't know that was a thing. That's a thing?
Yeah, the Lions do real well with the waxing gibbous.
How do we
I'm about
know?
to learn
Can somebody
I've
Google
taken
that? I should have Googled it before the show. I came unprepared about the wax and gibbous. But somebody can tell me about the gibbous. That would be great. Outside of that, we do have 3 games. So we have 3 NFL games, Kenner. We'll start with the early one. Lions versus the Bears. Is that spread what, 10.5?
Is it 10.5?
I actually should have looked at that.
It's 10.
10.
Detroit minus 10.
Okay. Kenner, who you got?
Man, again, the Bears, they're just, 4-7 on the year. Caleb Williams, been a weird up and down season for him. But I just think the Lions, they just don't disappoint at this point. Like, they're consistent every single week. They just come out and punch you in the mouth. I have a hard time believing they're going to come out on a day like Thanksgiving, where they're traditionally known to play, and they've played so poorly for so long on that holiday. I think they come out and take care of business. I actually think that they cover. I don't think there's going to be any good games on Thanksgiving. Let's just put it that way. I'm taking the Lions over the Bears in that one easily.
I feel like we always say that, and then there always is a close. I feel like that first game is usually always somewhat close. I could be wrong, but that's just how I feel it. So that's at 12:30 tomorrow, 4:30.
Well, you're not going to pick the game?
Oh, I didn't pick it. I'm going to take the I'm going to take the Lions minus 10 because they steamroll every bad team in the league. So
I'm taking Caleb.
You're going to take the Bears?
You got to take Caleb.
That's a losing bet.
Caleb's playing good ball, man.
It's a losing bet.
Caleb's playing good ball.
That's a losing bet. You're going to take Caleb. Casey, who you got?
I'm going to take Caleb.
There we go.
Lions record on waning gibbous. This is what I should have looked up.
This next game is the fattest nap I've ever taken.
The Detroit Lions are 0-13 when the moon is a waxing gibbous.
So we need a waning gibbous?
So we need a waning gibbous.
I see.
And that's what it is.
I see. So you need to bet on the Lions.
Correct. Bet on the Lions. Moving on. 4:30. Giants.
The biggest stinker of all time.
Giants versus the Cowboys.
I mean, this is
horrible game.
It's a battle of wits between Cooper Rush and the Italian guy.
No. Tommy DeVito is forearm soreness. He is doubtful to play.
Yikes.
It is going to be Drew Lock. And I'm rocking with Drew Lock.
Oh, I'm going to take the Giants.
I absolutely love Drew Lock. I think this is bad news for the Giants because they're starting Tommy DeVito because it gives them a worse chance to win than Drew Lock. Drew Lock's going to win this football game.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm going to take the Giants in that. I didn't know that. So thank you for telling me.
Kenner?
Giants plus 3.5.
Giants. What a brutal game. This is actually, I saw the graphic pop up the other day promoting this, and they're trying to do their best. The Dallas Cowboys, the New York Giants, just trying to prop it up. I'm like, my gosh, they have to know that this game is just butt cheeks. This is just horrible. I have no interest in this game whatsoever. I will not even pay 1 ounce of attention to it. I have no interest in the Cowboys-Giants game.
No.
I'll already be tired and stuffing my face with turkey, so it already makes you tired as it is. And then you got to watch that game? Yeah, I'll be snoozing.
This is nap time. This is big nap time. And I think the next one might be too.
Oh, by the way, Cowboys 0-5 at home. Just a little nugget for everybody.
Being outscored 4 billion to 7.
Well, is it sunny out? Is there going to be sun just...
Oh, yeah, we don't even know about the sun.
That's a good question.
Don't even know about the sun.
That's a good question.
Finally, the nightcap. Dolphins versus the Packers. That'll be a good game, I think.
What's the spread?
3.5 in favor of the Green Bay Packers. I'm going to take the Dolphins.
Wow.
And I'll tell you why.
2 in the cold.
And I'll tell you why. Because the Bengals need the Dolphins to lose, and nothing has gone the Bengals' way. That's why.
That's fair.
Nothing to do with the game. I think Jordan Love's a better quarterback. I think the Packers have a better roster, and it's at home. There's no reason to not take the Packers. So I'm going to take the complete opposite side. That's a little brain trick there.
Yeah.
Vegas doesn't want you to know about these brain tricks.
I think that's
a brain
probably
trick.
smart. I am going to take the Packers. I'm not going to bet on Tua and the Dolphins in the cold until they give me a reason to. So I'm going to keep taking the Packers in this one. I think it's 3.5 seems a little low. Seems like an overreaction to me for the last few weeks of the Dolphins. And I think the Packers could absolutely steamroll them if the weather complies. And by complies, I mean is bad.
Yeah. What a season by Josh Jacobs, by the way.
He's incredible.
So I said that the slate of games isn't very good. Look, the Bears-Lions could potentially be good. I think that the Lions have been the Lions operate like a damn college team. Like those crybaby Indiana beat writers that couldn't handle a 36 to 15 or 16 game. They wouldn't know what to do covering the Detroit Lions in the NFL. I mean, the Lions have been pummeling teams. They don't call the dogs off. They don't call the Lions off. They just keep attacking. That could be a blowout. Who knows? But the Lions are fun to watch. Cowboys-Giants is a snoozer. I lied. I think that this one actually is going to be a pretty damn good game. I like the Dolphins in this one, and I should do what Jacob's doing and stick to the whole, I need to see Tua play well in the cold before I can all of a sudden just act like that's not a factor. It is in Green Bay. It's at Lambeau. I get that. But Tua's been great since coming back. Like I just saw this the other day. 101 of 130 pass attempts. I mean, completing 79% of his passes. Has a 114 average passer rating at this point. He's thrown for nearly 1,000 yards since coming back, 960-something yards, 7 touchdowns, only 1 interception. I know they haven't played the best competition either, but I still think the fact that I'd be more concerned if he wasn't playing well against bad competition and they were still winning. They've been dominating teams because of the way he's been playing. He's been beyond accurate. This team was down for the count. They were just horrible when he was not out there. They look like a completely different team when he's back. Jacob, I'm with you. The cold, it's a factor. I'm just going to pretend that that's not going to play a role in this because if they do win, I do think the Dolphins are going to have everyone's attention at this point because I think you got to throw the record out the window, understand that record's as bad as it is because he was out. The Dolphins, if they come away with the win tomorrow, they'll be one of the hottest teams in football and the storyline to keep an eye on the rest of the way. I do know that's not good for Cincinnati as they're just trying to keep their head above water and continue to fight. But I think the Dolphins, because of their defense, they can run the football. Tua's been playing lights out. They've been picking on bad teams, though. They have a chance to convince everybody that they're for real tomorrow and to put to rest that cold narrative. And Tua said as such last week after their game, he's excited for this opportunity to put to rest that narrative. He could be mad about that narrative, but that narrative exists, and it might be true. He has a chance to put it to rest tomorrow, though. I'm going to go with the Dolphins and Tua in this one.
If they win the game, they're 500.
Yeah.
They're 6-6.
Yeah.
So that's pretty damn impressive. I'll say this about the Dolphins. There are supposed to be snow showers tomorrow. So if in Green Bay, if they were to win, I'll put to bed the narrative. I'll put to bed the narrative.
I'll be the first to say that I won't.
Okay.
I'll go out on a limb and say I won't. If the Packers go to or if the Dolphins go to Green Bay and get the win
in snow, in a snow out.
Yeah, no, I won't. I'll just keep saying Tua can't win in the cold.
Okay, that's fair.
I'll be bold. We do have another game though.
I've never met someone more stubborn than you. I've never I am. But, it is insane. It is just absolutely insane. What do you mean if he goes to win tomorrow?
No. Well, you got to see it in the playoffs. I mean, if it's cold in the playoffs, what do you want me to do? You want me to bet on Tua? No. Just get it one time. He doesn't do it more often.
I bet he can't win 2 playoff games in the cold.
Amen. Wait till Lamar Jackson wins a ring because I bet he can't win 2. We do have another game, Black Friday game.
Oh!
Supposed to be the Bengals. Ooh. If we remember when the NFL started playing on Black Friday, the Bengals reached out to the league and said, hey, we'll do it. We'll play every year on Black Friday if you want. And the league said, nope. So Raiders at Chiefs on Black Friday. I thought this was a night game. I didn't realize it was like a 3:30 kickoff.
Oh, yeah, 3:30 kickoff, and I'm going to take the Chiefs minus 400. Whatever that spread is, it's not big enough.
13.
Whatever it is, it's not big enough.
So you are betting against your guy, Desmond Ridder.
That's correct.
Interesting. I am not. I am betting on my guy, Desmond Ridder, because as the UC football fan on the show, someone has to pick up the sword and shield for that program and fight for them. So I'm going to bet on Desmond Ridder. Battle for my Bearcats.
He's a hero.
He's a hero. They're going to get the win. I do have a fun Desmond Ridder stat that I can share with everyone while we're on the topic. I sent it to Elliot a few days ago after his game this weekend. Desmond Ridder has the worst lost fumble EPA per game of any QB that has played at least 20 games since 2000. 194th out of 194. But he got to that one Cotton Bowl. Kinner.
Jacob's a hero for the UC program.
Last year when the Raiders beat the Chiefs, these are what we call upsets. I hate when upsets happen and the team that upset the team, they try to act like this is our house now. Like that's what the Raiders did last year that drove me nuts. Like I was glad to see the Chiefs lose. I was glad to see the Raiders, punch them late in the season. Don't get me wrong. But I just kept rolling my eyes when Antonio Pierce, everyone else was doing this. Like, this is what we do. We're confident. We know we could beat it was an upset. And they very well could pull off an upset tomorrow. But they're a 13-point dog for a reason. I will say this. I'm not picking the Raiders to win, but I am picking the Raiders to cover.
You think I'm picking the Raiders to win? No.
I'm not picking the Raiders to win. The Raiders will cover, mainly because I still like the Chiefs. They remind me so much, and I don't think they're going to have the drop-off that the Steelers did a few years ago, and I know the Chiefs already have a loss. But the COVID year when the Steelers jumped out to that 11 or 12-0 start to the season, but at no point, they were 12-0, but no one had them at the top of their power rankings because they were just they won ugly the entire time. That's where I'm at with the Chiefs. I'm not confident. A 13-point line. I'm not confident that they're going to put the Raiders away. I'm just not. I love Patrick Mahomes drives me nuts, but I know what kind of talent he is. I know he's good. I know this Chiefs team is good. I know they're coached well. I know they have a good defense. They just let the Panthers move the ball all up and down the field on them. Maybe Bryce Young has figured it out. Who knows? But I like the Raiders to keep this one close. And by the way, you're right. A 3:30 kickoff. There's no. I could see if they had a night game after it, like a Friday night doubleheader. But there's not. It's just one game, one standalone game, 3:30, Amazon Prime, and that's it. Doesn't make any sense. But yeah, I think it's going to be a close game, but an ugly game. Chiefs will win, but it'll be an ugly game.
I bought tickets to Gladiator on Friday because I didn't realize it was a 3:30 game. So now I got to decide whether or not I'm going to go to Gladiator or watch the first half of this garbage football game.
Go to Gladiator.
I'm definitely going to Gladiator.
Go to
the
Gladiator.
Raiders.
Well, that wraps it up for us on the radio side, and I think we did so many long segments I could fill 2 radio shows over the next couple of days. So I'll sort that out here in a bit. But until next week on the radio side, this has been Off the Bench presented by United Dairy Farmers. And we are back. Justin Kinner, Casey McAllister, Elliot Rear, and Jacob Siska with you here. We close things out on the YouTube side Off the Bench, presented by United Dairy Farmers. I'm excited for Thanksgiving. In fact, I've already checked out on the rest of the day. I'm done after this. And then, you guys are done too, right? You guys hanging around at the studio for a bit? Are you guys done?
We're doing a boxed lunch immediately after this, and then we're out of here. But before we do that, I saw this. I forgot to play it on the show yesterday, and I said I would play it.
This is elite.
John Fanta. He decided to do a Twitter Spaces. I enjoy Twitter Spaces for moments like this because anybody can just call up and troll. So there was a Bearcats fan that decided to troll, and he was going to go on there and say, John Fanta, why is there a media bias? Because Xavier is always ranked higher, and Xavier always has more esteem than the Bearcats over the past 6 years. We all know that answer. It's not a hard thing to figure out. But the Bearcats guy said he was going to let's go troll John Fanta, and John Fanta absolutely shut him down. So this is the clip.
You can't salvage the call.
Adam, go.
Hey, John, thanks. Just following up on the crosstown shootout, how bad did it hurt to finally rank Cincinnati ahead of your buddy Sean Miller this week?
Didn't hurt me one bit, Adam. I do my job. Cincinnati's better than Xavier now.
You've had Xavier ranked ahead of him all season until this week. I figured it had to hurt. I know you're buddies with Sean.
I got a job to do, Adam.
Your buddy.
So, Adam, you call me up here, and you want to tell me it must hurt me to rank somebody over somebody else?
I've seen the media bias in Xavier's favor for the last several years, and now
Yeah, they've been a better program. They've kicked Cincinnati's butt. They've been a better program by a wide margin. Frankly, Cincinnati, we've been waiting for this version of Cincinnati. Cincinnati's been their butts have been kicked. You're using the past couple of years. No. You're using the past couple of years. That's your argument? Xavier's been better than Cincinnati in every facet. There's a media bias. I go off score. The scores of the game were Xavier over Cincinnati. You want to tell me about how I feel about stuff. I don't lose sleep over where I rank a team. I lose sleep over whether I took the trash out on time, whether I picked up the right groceries for my wife, if I'm taking care of her right now, and the Cleveland Browns. I didn't lose any sleep over them, Adam, but I might lose sleep because of you. Happy Thanksgiving.
Happy Thanksgiving, Johnny. Go Browns.
No, you don't get to salvage the call.
You don't get to salvage the call, Kenner. You can never salvage the call.
I didn't hear that one. He went off on somebody else the other day, too. So when you'd asked about that, someone had called in. They pissed him off because they asked him about the sports betting scandal that's going on right now. There's a lot of big names in college basketball that are just mysteriously missing from their programs, and because they're being investigated right now for a sports betting scandal. So that's the clip I saw. I did not see that one, but that's absolutely hilarious. Absolutely hilarious.
That's very good. Very good. Well, now, Kenner, you were going to send something.
This was crazy.
Oh, there was a guy. So we're talking about the Raiders a little bit ago. There was a fan at the Raiders game recently that was in the upper deck somewhere watching the game, and he got tossed because of the cheap material that makes up some of the glass barrier, which this would alarm me if I'm at that stadium. I sent it to Casey. Casey, show that. I don't know if it doesn't matter. We're not on radio. I don't know what's said in the background, but go ahead and share this. This guy gets kicked out of the Raiders game for this. Take a look.
Getting the fans up. Oh. How did he shatter the whole
strength. Look at him. He didn't even hit it that hard.
He didn't even hit that hard.
So he's having a good time. Everything's great. He's like, "Did you guys see this? Look at this shit! Like this is crazy, right?" And he just put down. They throw the game for his team. They kicked him out. They kicked him out. He didn't do anything. That means that's ridiculous. That's ridiculous. The guy gets kicked out. He didn't do anything wrong.
He was just celebrating. You made bad glass. You had a bad piece of glass out there, and he went out and celebrated.
But
Nothing I haven't done before.
He didn't do anything crazy at all. Like they acted as if like he was just destroying, property out there at all. Like he barely touched it. That shattered. I don't know how that story ended up. I don't know if they allowed him to go back in. I don't know if they reviewed it and said, "Hey, my bad, we overreacted. Here's tickets to a future game." But that's horrendous. That's absolutely horrendous. And by the way, that would worry me if that cheap glass is what is keeping fans from falling to their death below. I'm a little concerned about the less than quality standard that glass is made out of. By the way,
I agree with you. That is pretty nuts. But hey, Kenner, are you going to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving? Because this is the final show before Thanksgiving. So everybody, from me. We'll all wish you guys happy. Me personally, I wish every single one of you the happiest of Thanksgivings ever, and may God bless you.
I will as well.
Casey?
Happy Thanksgiving, everyone.
That's right.
And now, Kenner?
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Look at that.
Wow. I thought he was going to do the bit.
It's a real fan.
I don't like that people don't like me. I'm not trying to make people not like me.
I thought you were going to go into the bit and say, "Oh, I'm not going to wish anybody a happy Thanksgiving because they all hate me." I opened the door for that, but that's okay. You closed it yourself.
No, he's a good guy. He's a good guy.
See, Elliot sits back. He enjoys it. He enjoys when I do something wrong. Because every time I've snapped on the show, I've gone back and looked. Like when I snap, it pisses Jacob off. Not because I've snapped, but it's usually because we're arguing. But when I snap, he's smiling.
He always is.
Smiles. He loves it. Even when I'm yelling at him, he sits back and just smiles the entire time.
I thrive in it. Yeah.
Colin asks what Ray Romano has for Thanksgiving with his family.
Oh yes, what are you eating for Thanksgiving?
Turkey, ham,
no
stuffing,
no
pumpkin pie.
It's a pizza pie. It's a pizza pie. He's gonna have a big pizza pie with his family. I'm Ray Romano. My brother's
How's
Robert.
How's James Madison doing?
Well, he's dead.
Right, James Madison. James Madison loves Thanksgiving turkey. Gobble, gobble, gobble.
Was
Nailed
James
it.
there for Thanksgiving?
I don't know. I don't know the story of the United States.
Jesus.
All right.
On the way out, most overrated Thanksgiving Day meal item is what?
Overrated, huh? Hold on, let me think.
I'm trying to think of what that.
I listen.
Dare I say turkey?
I think it's turkey.
I think turkey's the most overrated.
All right, I got a question for everyone while we're doing this. Why don't we just do steaks?
I agree. Let's. I
Give me
I
like
do
a
steaks.
center cut strip. On
Yeah,
Thanksgiving.
I do
I'll still do the
steaks.
stuffing and all that stuff.
A little fillet.
I don't need
Nothing
the.
wrong
I don't
with
need the
fillet.
turkey. Give me steak.
No, yeah.
I love
Let the
that
birds
idea.
live.
I love that idea. Actually, like, and by the way, I don't like separate my food on the plate. Like, I like a good mash. I like
yeah.
a good, like those KFC bowls. That's what I do with my Thanksgiving. I put the mashed potatoes on the bottom, then I put the stuffing, then I put green bean casserole. I eat like a child at Thanksgiving. I just make a big old pile of everything and just eat it, and then top it with gravy. That's what you got to do. And then you get those the Hawaiian rolls. I told you yesterday I do some things for some Hawaiian rolls. I love Hawaiian rolls. All right, like, yeah, I can't wait for tomorrow. I'm gonna be in a food coma by the end of the day. I cannot wait for tomorrow.
It's my favorite holiday. Where do your holidays power rank, Elliot? Where does Thanksgiving slot in?
It's right behind. I was trying to think of some silly holiday. I can't. I'll put Thanksgiving 1. Thanksgiving's become 1. It used to be Christmas. Now it's Thanksgiving. Because Thanksgiving gives you to look forward to Christmas.
Right. Thanksgiving and Christmas are basically a wash for me now that there's football on both days. It used to be I take Thanksgiving because I don't care about the NBA.
Yeah.
But I think the food's better on Thanksgiving. You get football both times, and you still have Christmas to look forward to. I think Thanksgiving takes the cake every time.
Kenner, Colin in the chat says the most overrated food on Thanksgiving is bofa.
Oh, what's bofa, dude?
And that'll do it for
That's
today's
it.
And
Off
we're
the
out
Bench.
here.
That's it.
Yeah.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Box lunch in a bit. Gobble, gobble, gobble.